Hey guys, I'm JAMR. I'm one of your TAs in Econ 2A, just in case you didn't already know, I guess. But in a couple of videos that I'm going to record, I'm going to talk about the definition of elasticity in this one, and then the price elasticity of demand in the next one. So they're going to be a couple fairly short videos, especially this one, because this is only going over the definition. But a heads up for elasticity as a whole, I'm going to show slides in which it goes over the calculation of price elasticity of demand. In the second one, I'm going to say this again at the beginning of the next video, but don't feel obligated to know how to calculate it. Write down the formula. You can write down the steps as I go along, but you're not going to have to calculate it for the exam. The professors told me, and you're probably not going to use that anyway after. So that's why you don't have to learn how to calculate it. But I will, just for the sake of making it easier to explain to you guys. So without further ado, share my screen. Supply and demand and elasticity. We're going to talk about how to measure the magnitude of changes in supply and demand due to a price change and understand why the slope of the demand and supply curves is not sufficient for this. I'm going to talk about that a little more in the next video too, but people sometimes get elasticity and slope mixed up because the slope is a fantastic indicator of how responsive or how elastic or inelastic the demand will be for a certain product or good, but it's not the same value. It is not, they're not equivalent. They're not synonymous. So don't confuse them, because some people have had a hard time with that in the past. But an increase in the supply with a rightward shift in the supply curve will the equilibrium down along the demand curve, indicating a decreased quantity demanded. So this is qualitative assessment tells us what, but the quantitative assessment tells us by how is the demand going to respond to a change in price, which is exactly what elasticity will show, and how responsive is supply to a change in price. But the quantitative assessment of that responsiveness is elasticity. So the definition, this is another analogy the professor likes to include in class that makes it easier for some people to understand. The Sleep Number mattress, the husband and wife sharing it. The husband has his set to firmer setting. The wife has her set to a softer setting. So how responsive they are to a change in the firmness or softness of the mattress, as evidenced by how well they sleep, would be a good way to talk about elasticity in that context. But the definition, how responsive demand to supply is to a change in one of its factors. But for the sake of explaining it to you guys in this video and in the next video, we're going to look at price. Don't pay attention to the other factors. We're only going to be talking about price. So how responsive demand or supply is to a change in price. But it is going to be changed by some other things in income or the prices of other goods, and those are different kind of elasticities. So the own price elasticity of demand and own price elasticity of supply are the same thing that I said in the previous slide. It's just the change in price for a good, how that changes the elasticity of demand and the elasticity of supply, or how responsive it changes the response rather. But income and elasticity, income elasticity of demand, and cross price elasticity of demand are a couple that I'll go over the definition of later on. But don't hold on to those. Hold on to the price elasticity of demand. So in each case, the first term causes the change in the second term. Price change or price elasticity of demand. It's just how the change in price affects the elasticity of demand, and how the price affects the elasticity of the supply. But in a broader sense, any causal relationship like this can be measured with elasticity. We're going to mention on the 4 above. And now the heart and soul of this video. This is how you calculate elasticity. Write this down. Elasticity is calculated by the percent change in the quantity demanded over the percent change in price. And the book does use another method, but I'm not going to emphasize it. And it's a multi-step process for calculating elasticity. You break it down, you're going to have to calculate the percent change for both quantity demanded and quality supplied, quantity demanded and the change in price separately. But this is where I'm going to leave off following this slide. But something to think about prior to moving on to the next video is higher fuel costs lead to an increase in the cost of air travel, and consider the market for flights from Boston to LA. So would a lot of business travelers change their plans? How would they be affected by a change in price? How would the vacationers be affected by this change in price? And how would holiday travelers be affected by a change in price? I'll give you the hint now that, a business traveler, think about their profession, their business requires them to be there. So how responsive would they be to a change in price? Vacation travelers, how much do they need to be in LA for vacation? Would they be fairly responsive to a change in price? And holiday travelers, something more difficult to think about, because how do you gauge how important Christmas with your family is, or graduation for your daughter is? How responsive would somebody going on a holiday be to a change in price for the airfare? But that's where I'm going to leave off on this video. I'm going to go on to the next video that talks about the price elasticity of demand, and I will stop sharing, and I'll see you guys in the next video.